Welcome back to the Hockey Hotbed. Thank you for tuning in to Season 1, Episode 3 of the Hockey Hotbed. Talking a lot about the Seattle Kraken heading into their initial and inaugural season. I'm excited to see them play. I was excited to see the Vegas Golden Knights play back in 2017-18, but I think I'm even more excited to see the Seattle Kraken play, even more so because of what I saw back in 2017 from the Vegas crowd. It's going to be a very fun season for them. Can they make the playoffs? I don't know. We'll talk about that in segment 3 here on the Hockey Hotbed. But for right now, let's talk about breakout seasons. Obviously, we compare, and we're going to compare, a lot of the Seattle Kraken season this year to what we saw in Vegas back in 2017 and 2018. Simply because that's the closest thing we have to a comparison right now. Now, it might not be fair because Vegas, obviously, as many people know, went to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. They had a really, really, really successful inaugural season. And the big reasons for that were breakout performances. Who will be the Seattle Kraken's William Karlsson? Who's going to be the Riley Smith? You look at the Vegas Golden Knights, they had 5 breakout performances during that season. You know what? I'll give you 4. James Neal was already a proven commodity when it came to goal scoring. And he went out there and did it again. 25 goals, 44 points in 71 games. That's pretty much James Neal. It's what you expected from James Neal, and that's what Vegas probably expected from James Neal. They wanted him there because they wanted a proven scorer, proven commodity to put the puck in the net, and that's what he did. But then you have a guy like Erik Haula, who goes off for 29 goals. That's a breakout performance. You have a guy like David Perron, puts up 50 assists. A lot of people forget David Perron had a really good season with the Vegas Golden Knights in 2017-18. He puts up 50 assists. And then, of course, you have the epitome of what it means to be an expansion player in the 2010s. And that was the Golden Misfits line, is what they called them. William Karlsson, Riley Smith, and Jonathan Marchessault. One of the biggest, if not the biggest reason that Vegas was able to find the success that they did back in their inaugural season. Jonathan Marchessault was coming off a 30-goal season for the Florida Panthers when he was drafted in the expansion draft. He went out and put up 27 goals, 75 points in 77 games. Riley Smith, who was also just traded to Vegas because Florida wanted out from under his contract. Florida wanted just get him out of there. Riley Smith goes out, puts up 22 goals and 60 points in 67 games. And of course, the kicker, the one that everybody points to, is William Karlsson. 43 goals, 78 points in 82 games. All 3 of these players playing on the same line, all finish just a hair under a point per game. All, of course, scoring career highs in points. That is the reason the Vegas Golden Knights found success that season. If we all remember, scoring was also still an issue for Vegas at points, especially to start the season. Scoring was an issue. Then they found their stride. This line found its stride, and they were able to push for a playoff spot because of that, because of Marc-Andre Fleury in net, and because of the way they played the game. Is that not just kind of a blueprint for Seattle on how to find success this year? They need to find these players. They need to find their William Karlsson. They need to find their Riley Smith. They need to find their Jonathan Marchessault. There's a couple players on this team that kind of fit the bill. I want to start with Jared McCann. Obviously, I know a lot about Jared McCann because I've watched a lot of Penguins hockey in the past couple of years. Jared McCann last year had 14 goals, 32 points in 43 games. Not an awful season for a guy that, if you consider the fact that bounced between the third line, the second line, the first line, wing or center, played on the power play, didn't play on the power play. He was jack of all trades. I don't want to say master of none because he played really well on the power play when he got the opportunity with Evgeny Malkin's injury. He played extremely well. And that might lead to an inflation in his goal total. But I think Jared McCann, with an inflated role, being able to basically stay in, I don't want to say a top 6 role because I put him on the third line in the first segment. But even on the third line for Seattle, he's going to find more playing time, find more favorable matchups than he did in Pittsburgh. And I think when it comes to breakout performances, Jared McCann is somebody that you definitely need to keep your eye upon. I can see him going out and putting definitely 20 goals. With this team, I could see Jared McCann putting up 20 goals. 25 might be the max for me. I don't think he'll go over 25. If he does, I mean, color me surprised. But I think Jared McCann is probably good for 20 to 25 goals this season for the Seattle Kraken. I think that's the type of breakout you can expect from him. Especially if they use him on that first power play unit. And especially if they put him in the top 6. I didn't put him in the top 6. Dave Hackstall might have a completely different idea. But if he plays in the top 6, definitely 20 goals. I would put it max 25 goals for Jared McCann. So obviously, I think he's going to have a breakout season for the Seattle Kraken. I think there's 2 other players that will have even bigger breakout seasons. And I think they're primed for even better seasons for the Seattle Kraken. These are the guys that I think are going to be the headliners. The guys that are going to be your William Karlssons. They're going to be your Riley Smiths. They're going to be your Jonathan Marchessaults. They might not be riding the nice of cars, Jonathan Marchessault, but I think they'll play like them. First is Jaden Schwartz, coming over from the St. Louis Blues, signing a pretty hefty contract with the Seattle Kraken. Pretty hefty contract. You look at Jaden Schwartz's performance last year, 8 goals, 21 points in 41 games with the St. Louis Blues. Not great, especially by his standards. He has had pretty steady success in the NHL when it comes to goal scoring. Only puts up 8 goals last season. Obviously, it is a weird season. You can take last year's stats with a grain of salt for basically anybody in the NHL. Jaden Schwartz, though, the way he played last year, I don't think that's indicative of how he's going to play this season, especially because he's going to be a top liner on this team. He's going to get top line minutes. He's going to get opportunities that he didn't get in St. Louis. Schwartz was a 4-time 20-goal scorer so far in his career. I think obviously he makes it 5-time this year. I think he goes to be a 30-goal scorer this year. I think he has what it takes to possibly go out there, put up 30 goals, and be one of the leaders on this team when it comes to putting the puck in the back of the net. You want to know what Jaden Schwartz I expect to see this season for the Seattle Kraken? I expect to see 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs Jaden Schwartz. 12 goals, 20 points, in a little over 20 games in that cup run with St. Louis. Obviously a Stanley Cup champion. Obviously you look back at that cup run and you realize that the majority of his performance was all in that first round series against the Winnipeg Jets. I believe he also had a hat trick in that series. I think it was game 6, actually. I would have to double check, but I think in game 6, he eliminated the Winnipeg Jets with a hat trick. Obviously, other players scored, but I expect Jaden Schwartz to go out there. I get it's a gamble, especially after the season he had last year, especially for that price. I mean, 5 years, $5.5 million per year on the cap hit. That is a gamble by the Seattle Kraken, but they had the money. You're a brand new team. They still have $8 million in cap space right now. I don't think they're going to use it. It wouldn't be smart for Ron Francis to use that right away. You look at where Vegas is right now with their cap situation. You don't want to follow them into that. So yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble at $5.5 million a clip. But I think it pays off. I think he's primed to be a breakout performer for the Seattle Kraken. The last player I want to mention, it's almost too easy. And I spoke about him a little bit earlier when I was talking about the lineup. And I spoke about how the fact that he is basically the perfect merger between William Karlsson and Jonathan Marchessault's story. In the fact that he was underutilized in Columbus, and he had a breakout season the year before he gets drafted in Florida. 17 goals, 29 points for Florida last season. I know what you're saying. That's not a breakout season. But when it comes to goal scoring, it is. Compared to what we saw from him most of the time that he played in Columbus, that was a return to what we expect from Alex Wennberg. 2016-17 is the reason we have these expectations, really. I mean, you look at the season he had in Columbus in 2016-17, 13 goals, 59 points with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Career high in points. Last year, 17 goals is his career high. Overall, he played better in Florida. He was given a more integral role in the lineup, and he stepped up and he became an integral player for a really good Florida Panthers team, a team that has some really good studs on that roster. Alex Wenberg is going to get top 6 minutes. I put him as a second line center. I initially put him as the first line center. I think he could go either way. He's going to be either the first line or the second line center for the Seattle Kraken this year. Do I think he scores over 20 goals? I think he is primed to do something like that. If he doesn't score over 17 goals, over 20 goals, I still think he's going to be one of the team leaders in points. Seattle and Ron Francis are banking on the fact that he's going to continue the progression that he started last year with Coach Quenneville. And I mean, he's going to be given a much bigger opportunity than he's ever been given before. So I think Alex Wenberg is definitely primed to have a really good season. So if you're watching Seattle Kraken hockey, to me, the 3 guys you need to watch out for when it comes to who is going to have a breakout season, who is going to be the best scorers for the Seattle Kraken, who's going to put the puck in the back of the net, because this is going to be a team that is predicated on keeping the puck out of the net and scoring just enough goals. That's the formula. If you want to follow what Vegas did in their first year, that's the formula. Be really good at preventing goals and then score just enough. So the 3 players I'm looking at there, Jared McCann, who's going to be in that middle 6 that I'm vaunting at the beginning of the season. Jaden Schwartz, who I think is going to be a top liner all year long. As long as he remains healthy, he will be on that top line probably the entire season. And Alex Wenberg, who could be their first line center in a month's time, and I would not be surprised. Those 3 players. Now, obviously, there's other players. I think Brandon Tanev is going to be a fan favorite, as I mentioned earlier. I think if you look at it, Calle Jarnkrok could have a really good season. Colin Blackwell might have a really good season. Jordan Eberle, I mean, that's the guy that you brought in. That's the big name they brought in. That's the James Neal move right there, even though Jordan Eberle has never been the goal scorer that James Neal was. So we'll see what Eberle can do. But I think if you're looking realistically at the 3 guys that are going to lead this team offensively, I think you're looking at Jared McCann, Jaden Schwartz, and Alex Wenberg. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, can the Seattle Kraken make the postseason? That's going to be an interesting story. We'll see what they can do. We'll be right back.